Hi everyone, and welcome to TLDR Week 9, Web Security and Browsers. The learning outcomes for this week, I want you to be able to talk about the browser security model, describe the concept of web sessions and the importance of secure certificates, describe some common types of vulnerabilities, and discuss browser settings for security, including some information about Tor and VPNs. So when we talk about browser security, what we're looking at is the websites that are created and different ways that these websites can be hacked. Now, according to OWASP, which is the organization that's at the forefront of web security, the most common issues with websites are injection attacks, websites leaking data, and websites being defaced. Now, an injection attack is actually where we have a place in the website that the people visiting the website, can put information in, and that information will make the website do something that it wasn't originally intended to do. Leaking data on a website is when a website is sharing information that it wasn't originally supposed to share. Defacement is usually when somebody takes over a website. You'll sometimes see this with Wikipedia articles, and that means the website is no longer looking the way it was originally intended to look. I would like you all to watch this example video of a SQL injection so that you can see what an injection attack looks like. Feel free to pause me here while you go watch that video. To protect a website, there's a number of things that we can do. We can do updates. We want to make sure that we are never using outdated code or running it on outdated servers. We can use something called frameworks so that when we're actually creating the website, we can use frameworks or applications like WordPress. And what these do is give us a start on our website, almost like a template, so somebody else can pay attention to what's sort of the more common issues or what should be paid attention to in terms of security. So you have a base to start with. Other things that we can do to protect our website is make sure that if we have a website that is dynamic, as in you can interact with it, we are making sure that we are sanitizing the inputs. So if you have, for example, a website like Amazon, where you want it to search a list of products, you want to make sure that you are sanitizing the search results so that if somebody does something like put in a SQL command, it won't just run and then give information that the website didn't want to give. Now we have client-side attacks. Client-side and server-side, when we talk about websites, the client-side is the person that is looking at the website. The server-side is the place that the website is being hosted. The client-side attacks, we might end up seeing some things with sniffing information or sniffing credentials, websites that are going to track you across multiple places, like for example, Facebook is actually really well known for this. Even if you're not signed in, Facebook likes to track everything that you're doing, and any websites that have the little Facebook F icon, they're actually paying attention to like who's there, are you signed in or not. If you're not signed in, they actually give you a little unique identifier, and then when you do sign into Facebook, they take all of the information they collected and merge it with your profile. They actually got into some trouble over this. Other client-side attacks can include things like browser fingerprinting that we talked about before, where the website is actually able to uniquely identify who you are. It might not know your name, but at the end of the day, when we talk about security, your name is probably the least valuable piece of information that they have. Client-side defense, as in what can you do? Some of the things you can do include paying attention to your browser settings, putting yourself into a privacy mode, using Tor or the Onion router. There's a Tor browser. There's a couple browsers that also are specifically focused on security, like Brave. You can make sure that you're using HTTPS all of the time. The last two can actually get in the way of your internet browsing experience. So if you start blocking cookies or blocking JavaScript, what's going to start happening is you're actually going to get in the way of what you want to do online. And what I mean is, let's say you are looking at a regular news site and they have one of those infinite scrolling articles. So the further down you go, the more articles load, like, Reddit or Dig or something. If you block JavaScript, you'll actually not see any of those news articles that are being served because those are being served dynamically, probably using JavaScript. You're also going to see things like a lot of the websites will be almost completely blank because a lot of the things that they are showing to you aren't actually written in HTML and CSS. They are probably written in JavaScript. Most websites also pull in JavaScript from multiple other places. This is how ads get served. This is how websites actually give any variety of interaction. So once you block that, a lot of the websites will basically turn to nothing. Blocking cookies will give you some of the same problems. If you block cookies, then they will no longer be able to say, remember your login, or you won't be able to do any payment methods. So if you're trying to do something like shop online, which a lot of us have been doing during pandemic, blocking cookies means you can no longer sign into websites. Doing things like using PayPal or Venmo for payments won't work anymore, and it actually starts to significantly impact your browsing experience. With websites, we have something called certificates. The certificates are done by transitive trust, where we have a company that says, hey, it's okay, don't worry, I verify that this person is fine. When you create a website, you want to get a certificate that somebody will verify that says, hey, you're fine. The entire system of certificates being signed, they're called signing requests, and the root certificate authorities, or in other words, the company that is saying, hey, it's okay, they're cool, you can go there, that's actually all part of what's considered the public key infrastructure. And that infrastructure of transitive trust is how the entire web ends up working. Now, if you're interested, you can actually go into the settings of your browser and you can look at who is considered a root certificate authority, what certificates they've signed, how many are there, and all of that is actually saved within your browser. Now, there are different certificate authorities. There's for-profit and non-for-profit. Some examples are DigiNotar and Komodo. When we have any of these certificate authorities, they also have the ability to do something called revoking. They can actually basically say, I gave this certificate out, however, I take it all back, you can't have it anymore, and then they pull the certificate back. Now, sometimes you'll actually see that because, for example, the certificate company got hacked. That ended up happening to a couple different places, and certificates were issued for bad malware hosting sites. So they would actually revoke those. They'll also sometimes revoke, so if they think that their credentials might have been sniffed, they will actually revoke all the certificates that have been signed in the last, month, 6 months, whatever, and then ask everybody to renew their certificates. Certificates also need to be renewed on a regular basis. If certificates aren't renewed, then you are no longer going to be considered a trusted website. You're no longer going to have the little nice green padlock that they have on most browsers, and it turns into a bit of a problem. Now, when we talk about anything to do with browsers logging in and logging into places, a lot of times we'll talk about single sign-on versus not single sign-on. The idea behind single sign-on is a lot of companies have started moving to this single sign-on method. You can also look at it as keys to the castle. If you use a single sign-on, once you sign in to the website, that will give you the ability to access a whole bunch of other websites. Neko actually does this. So when you log on to MyNECC, you should have a single sign-on where as soon as you log in, you should have access to your email, Blackboard, self-service banner, DegreeWorks, all of those things. Now, the good thing about single sign-on is it actually reduces password fatigue and IT costs. You only have a single password for everything. You no longer have to worry about one password for DegreeWorks, a different password for your email, and then a third password for self-service banner so you can register for classes. You have one password and one login area. Now, of course, the downside to this is you only have one password. So if you have a single password and you lose that password, it's a much bigger problem because now you've lost access to everything. Current best practices say that if you're going to do single sign-on, you need to do two-factor authentication. As I hope you remember from earlier in the class, two-factor authentication means that you have to pick two of the three factors. If the three factors are something you know, something you have, and something you are, you want to pick two, something like a password and a text message, or a PIN number and a physical key. So you do want to pay attention to making sure that if you do have a single sign-on, hopefully they follow best practices. A VPN or virtual private network is a way that you can get access to another person's computer and have it be protected. So the idea behind a VPN. So let's say you are at home or at a coffee shop. Let's all pretend we can go to coffee shops again. So you're sitting at a coffee shop with your laptop and you would like to access your work computer. Now, you don't want to just log into your work computer and get access from the outside because that's going to create some problems and leave some vulnerabilities. So what some companies will do is allow you to do a VPN into their network, which means you have basically this secure tunnel. So your connection to that computer is secure, and then all of your traffic is routed into this secure network area. Now, VPNs are also starting to gain some popularity with consumers, not just industry, for slightly different reasons. Some people will use VPNs and they will use them in a, oh no, I should be protected kind of a way, but more commonly, consumers will use VPNs so that they can bypass censorship blocking in other areas. So you'll see, if you watch any YouTube besides this, you'll see advertisements for VPNs where they'll suggest that you get a VPN so that you can bypass whatever restrictions are in your country and watch things from around the world. Technically, that's not legal, by the way. So, when you have a VPN, what you want to remember is yes, your connection to that other computer is secure. However, your traffic is still being routed to another computer. So if the computer that you're connecting to isn't secure or logs what you're doing or logs your IP address, you're not necessarily in that much better shape than you were before, depending on your use of the VPN and the reason you've chosen to do it. If you have any questions, please let me know.